Hey guys, custom computing here on another video. So lately I've been seeing a lot of people and YouTubers complaining about heat and having to shut down rigs, etc, etc. Now I'm going to be tooting my horn a little bit in this video just because when I did start this mining operation in 2020, I did plan properly with server cases, and that was just a little bit more expensive, but I knew future-proofing it for the summer, it was going to be a lot easier to manage the heat and my location and whatnot. So in this video, we're going to be looking at planning ahead. First off, basically, yes, it's going to cost a little bit more, but we're going to go through the numbers to see how much it costs to do it properly and how much it costs to have your rigs offline because you didn't properly manage the heat. I'm going to show a demonstration of a whole bunch of these huge warehouses that have open air rigs that are just throwing hot air back into the house, and then Son of a Tech has a whole bunch of rigs that are just sitting there in a massive warehouse and he has to shut them off because they're too hot. So we're gonna go through planning, we're gonna go through the power planning, how to manage your power in a central location if possible, and if not, how to manage that kind of to get more power to that central location. We're going to also be doing sound proofing because yes, these things get really loud as well as hot, so sound. And then finally we're going to be doing the hot and cool management of the room if you have a room. If you not, you can make one, and I'll show you all the benefits of how to do this properly. And right now is the best time to kind of go through this stuff because we're in a bear market, and once ETH merge hits, you can then kind of shut down everything and reapply these simple rules to make sure that when you're mining, you don't have to worry about heat, power, or cooling and sound. It'll just be easy plug and play situation once you've created this properly. So stick around. I'm going to show you what I've done, and I'm going to show you some don'ts from other YouTubers that are just basically trying to get the quickest buck, but not thinking of future-proofing their setups or future-proofing the maintenance of these rigs. So if you have a ton of rigs, you want to make it very easy to maintain, thermally fix, and basically know that what you've set up is going to be working at all times. So stick around, it's going to be a little bit different of a video, but we're going to start with planning your power. So here we go. $67, $68, $69. Nice. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to actually take a look at our circuit board, and we want to go through every single plug in the house so we know exactly what's on every circuit, we know exactly what's being used on there, and we know how much we have to play with. If you're in an apartment, obviously it's a lot easier, but you don't have as much power to play with. If you're in a house, what I was able to do is find every single outlet that wasn't being used, and I even found a whole bunch that were being slightly used that only had use of about 200 watts on it. So anyways, come take a look at the panel with me and I'll show you what I found out when I went through each one of my circuits in the house and how much I actually found that was not really being used. Come on over. Okay, so first off, when I moved into this house a little bit over a year and a half ago, I'm lucky that it was retrofitted with 200 watts, 200 amps. So I had to go through each one of the circuits and actually verify which plug is going to which circuit and what is on each circuit. I was able to make a diagram of each plug and what circuit they're on and how much how much is being used on each plug. And I found several different plugs that were actually free of use. So I labeled each one of the amperage minus what was possibly on it, and I found out several plugs. I even found a plug down here and over there, and the only thing that was on this circuit is the doorbell. So that's a free 1875 watt plug. So there's a free plug right there. And obviously I'm going to show you how I got all of these plugs from there, and even one over there. That's a separate circuit that I found free for my server. So you really want to be able to go through each one of your sockets, each one of your breakers, and map out exactly what's in use and what you have to play with. And that is a good start. All right, so now that we have every socket mapped out that goes to every circuit, and we know exactly what's on each socket and how much each circuit is using, that will free up however much you have available. If you actually don't have anything free, then obviously you're going to need to get added power, and a lot of people have had to do so. I was very lucky in terms of finding, a socket that had just the doorbell on it, or another socket that had just a light on it. So I was able to find a ton of free sockets, free circuits, and pipe it all into one location. So now that we have all of that mapped out, the next thing is we have to find a room in the house. And again, if you're in an apartment, this is not as hard to figure out because you don't have a lot of space. But if you're in a house, you need to find a location, a central location that has the availability to map power to it. Now I know this seems easy, but I'll show you what I mean in a second, as well as sound and ventilation options. Now most people in a house, they'll use the basement because the basement has a small window and you can't really hear things, and it's easy just to tuck it down there. But I'm going to show you a few caveats that you need to think about before you just toss these machines everywhere in your house. All right, stay tuned. Let's go watch. All right, so now that we have figured out that most of the power is traditionally set up in the basement, and that has to do with the fact that you have a washer, a dryer, and there's a furnace, and there's a lot of sockets around here that may or may not be in use. I was able to create a separate room in my laundry room that I was able to dedicate just for my mining operation. Now, this has to do with the sound as well. I didn't want to be able to hear the sound upstairs or downstairs, and so I was able to create a separate room, and that does cost, and we'll put the value of how much that cost me to build this wall. The other thing is, because I found a lot of free circuits, I was able to run through the wall, and now you may not be able to do this if you don't own the place, but patching up a wall is not that hard. I was able to run a few sockets up and into the mining room. So I was able to centralize all of my power into one location, which we'll take a look at now. Okay, so it's a little bit loud in here. Hopefully you can hear me. My goal was to make sure that I had all of my power, available power, routed into this central location, so I didn't have to have computers all over the house. And that was done by proper extension cords from a socket that are rated properly for the full 1875 watts or 15 amp circuit. So I was able to bring in all of the power from all different sources into one separate location, and you'll be able to see here each one of these has its own circuit label and breaker on it. So if we go down here, so we can see this has my circuit labeled, and then it says what server's on it, circuit labeled, what server's on it, circuit labeled server, circuit labeled server, circuit labeled server. So that's 5 separate circuits that I found in the house that allowed me to separate each one of my servers onto its own circuit. So now that we have the power all in one place, we need to start thinking about thermal management. So let's figure that one out. This is where things start to get a little bit exciting, and this is where a lot of people go wrong in terms of mining and future proofing and maintenance on setting this portion of the planning stage up. You do not need a lot of windows or fans, and I'm going to show you the fans that people are paying for to just blow through their GPUs is a complete waste of money. If you put that money towards a server case and proper airflow dynamics, it's probably cheaper to do it properly the first way. So here we're going to take a quick look at some of the do nots and what a lot of people, and even the professional YouTubers on here, which I'm not going to really rip on, but they are not doing the heat process justice. So they're having to shut down a lot of their rigs. So if you take a look at this one here, you'll see that it's a massive area. There's over 1,000 GPUs in this area, and just because it's a huge warehouse doesn't mean that it's going to be cool. There's no real ventilation here. It's all the heat is going from the bottom up to the top, and each of these are open air rigs. So you can see each rig subsequently is going to be getting hotter and hotter and hotter because it's blowing the air up the top. People can use an open air rig, and you can actually just create a box which will basically simulate a server chassis. So you can close off the ends of the open air rig and funnel all of the air through the back of the rig. And that's what I would do if I had a whole bunch of open air rigs. You can take a look here where there's a ton of GPUs just sitting on different racks, and it's because it's a massive warehouse, people think, oh, it'll be fine. But in this case, Son of a Tech is actually having to shut down rigs because it's getting too hot in there. So I don't know if he has any exit ventilation, but you need to just start putting your GPUs in a location that funnels all the air out to the back, and you can put a hot cold dial. So here's a few more examples of what not to do. But I think people just set this up because they're not thinking of the future maintenance during the summer. All right, let's go take a look at what I did. Now, what I was able to do for my setup, because I was able to basically create a really small room, it's probably only 8 by 11, it's not very big, but because I was able to create a separate room, pipe all of my networking and my power to this one location, I was able to take a simple hood fan, which for me it was broken, drummed out that. I'll post a link to the video of me making this. I have one 8-inch infinity fan that's pumping all the hot air out, and I have a wall blocker here so that the heat from the servers goes through and it stays at the back. Everything is blocked off. Now these don't have rails, so I haven't put them in yet, but essentially all the heat is coming out the back here and going up through that one hole, which is getting sucked up, and it's just an 8-inch exhaust out here. That's all you need, is just to exhaust that heat. This is a plexiglass covering here. This is for a backup air conditioner, which is not on because I don't need it. And I just have one air conditioning unit in this small window. So we have one AC unit here. We have the exhaust here, which I just cut out of a piece of plexiglass. And I have another exhaust in case this one goes on the fritz or what have you. That's all you need to cool this entire room of over 20 GPUs. It's 23 degrees in here, and it's about 30 degrees outside. Outside, it doesn't matter how hot it is outside because this is its own centralized room. It could be 50 degrees outside, but that doesn't matter because all of the heat is not coming in here. It's getting exhausted there, and this is cooling the room. One air conditioning unit, and I could probably have about 85 to 90 cards in this rack completely. So again, this small area here is the cold aisle, and then back here is the hot aisle, and it all gets sucked up through that one vent. Bubbles, very cool. All right, so I cannot reinforce this enough. You do not need a massive room. In fact, you need as small and condensed a room as possible, and as condensed as all of your servers are basically on top of each other, like a server rack, if you can. Otherwise, you can make each one of the open air mining rigs, put pieces of cardboard on the front, the back, on the top, and then stack them onto each other. You need to be able to just literally have all of them blowing in the same direction, and you also need to have a very small room to cool. Because if you cool a small room, it's self-sustaining, and it doesn't matter how hot it is outside. It can be 50 degrees outside, but if that room is self-sustaining, like in the basement or something, and you have one air conditioning and one heat, like shooting out the heat in the room and have the hot and cold, it's self-sustaining. It doesn't matter how hot it is outside. The air conditioning is cooling off the room, and however many cards are just gonna blow out heat. Now, obviously, if you have 50 cards, then you're gonna have to blow out more heat. But in my setup, because it's a server rack, I wouldn't change anything. I can add another 30 cards to that and just have it just blowing out the hot air and cooling the front side of the room. So finally, let's take a look at the cases and how to properly retrofit a server case with ample airflow. You cannot skimp on fans. This is crucial. Okay, hopefully you can hear me. Now this is just a Rosewell mining case. In fact, it wasn't even a mining case, it was just a Rosewell 4U case that I turned into a mining case. You have to use all of the fan locations that you possibly can. So here I've got high flow 120 millimeter fans going through. I've got 120, 120, and then an 80 millimeter fan blowing from the back plate. And then we've got additional fans back here, another 120 and two 80s to blow the air through that. So that, once it's closed up, you make sure that the air doesn't get stuck in between. It keeps going, and you make sure that it doesn't get stuck over the CPU. It keeps going out the back. Now, fans are quite expensive once you're buying this many. So for instance, in this build, let's take a look at this one. So in this build, we've got the same thing, the same design. 3 120s in the front, blowing through. We've got five 80 millimeter fans here from the back plate, and then you've got an additional 4 80 millimeter fans out the back. And yes, it is expensive, but if you just put these cards in here and you don't have the proper airflow all the way through, there's going to be pockets of hot air in your server case, and you don't want that. You need to make sure that you're utilizing all of the spots, and even creating your own, like I said over here, creating your own, another spot where the heat is going to be getting shot out. So this is one area you cannot skimp on. You have to utilize as many fans in the case as you possibly can, and that really allows you to just shoot all the air out the back and not have to worry about anything in the case heating up. All right, so we're going to take a look at the finances of setting up an open air rig versus doing it properly from the start, which is have it into a server rack or a server case and then having proper cooling with the hot and cold aisle. So the majority of people who have open air rigs end up purchasing these type of massive fans and just have these blowing on top of the open air rigs, which is just truly preposterous. It's just moving air everywhere. It's not a solution. So this is a typical fan that I've seen on a lot of YouTubers. I'll flash a couple of their images here on screen of them using these massive fans trying to cool them off. It's not the way to do it. So let's take this into consideration here. So if you were to buy an open air rig, let's say this is a 12 GPU mining frame open air. So this is actually a pretty good cost for a 12 GPU mining frame. And you could use this in a way that you can kind of use what I would say here is, what I would say is for the sides and the top and the bottom, I would use cardboard and basically funnel all of those 8 fans through to the back. Now this cost here is not including the 8 fans. So this is just the mining rig at $62. So $65 about. So you're still gonna have to buy 6 high flow fans to go on top of this rig here, because you got to be able to funnel that air. Even in this, you can see that the air is going up and down. It's going out everywhere. So let's take a look at that. So that's 6 times high flow fans. Now these are the best fans you can get. The Noctuas, they're 3,000 RPMs. I have 3 of these, and they're just incredible. They're very quiet, and they blow a ton of air. I think their CFM is something like, I don't even know what their CFM is, but 3,000 RPMs, which is just amazing. So each one of these is about $30, really pricey. But if you're going to do it properly, where you don't have to worry about fans breaking, and these ones are quiet as anything. So I would go and say, if you're going to buy an open air rig, you're going to need 6 of these high flow fans. You could skimp out and get a little bit cheaper ones, but it's not going to be the best for your air efficiency. So let's go 27 at 6 is 162. And if you were to do an open air case, you're probably going to have a separate industrial fan that's blowing on all of the different racks. So the total of that is 407. You could get rid of the industrial fan if you were to do the air rig in such a way that you have them all on top of each other and all of the rigs are covered up so that there's no airflow coming outside of the rigs. So it's basically creating its own server rack with these types of air rigs. So that's an idea, and that's something you can do, and it comes to around, again, $400 to just have this set up without motherboards, without CPUs, without GPUs, without nothing, just the open air rig. Now, if we were to go for a server chassis, it is going to be a little bit more expensive without the industrial fan, because you don't need an industrial fan if you're using the server chassis. So one of these server chassis right now is going for $449. I don't like these types of server chassis because they only have the front 4 fans, and then they don't have a mid-plate fan, and they don't have the back fan. So to me, this is similar to an Octominer, where it has the original fans at the front, and then it has no other fans. Consequently, you can also, let me take a quick look here. Where is it? Oh my gosh. Oh, here we go. Consequently, you can buy one of these, which I have converted into, I have 2 of these Rosewool cases, and I converted them into GPU mining cases. All you have to do is you just take out the front panel, the front drive cages, you just take them right out, and that's where your GPUs go. And then that mid plate there, you can see, I'll show a picture of Viper. I just strapped on a couple of fans to that, and then the back fans I'll show you, well, you'll see in the Viper case. So you can convert this into a server chassis, really simple. Just take out the front hard drive places, and it's about $189 for that. So you're getting $189 for the case. Yes, it's a little bit more expensive, but it gives you peace of mind that it's the proper way to do it. You're then going to include the 6 120 millimeter high flow fans, just like you would in the open air, and these will go in the mid plate and the front of the chassis. And you'll have 4, I mean, you can go maybe 2 80 millimeter fans, or 2 80 millimeter and 120, like I did with my my build there. So this is around $403 to get this done properly into a server chassis. So it's basically the same, but in this case, you don't have to worry about, moving things around or building a hot and cold aisle. It already has the hot and cold aisle basically set up front to back. Consequently, if you want to do an octominer, the here's a a shipment to the United States. The cheapest shipment is $715 for five octominers, because you can only order 5 unless it's like that one time a month that they let you to order 1. Regardless, the shipment is crazy, and for 5 units, it's $4,000 US, and all of these numbers are here in US. So it's $4,000 for 5 fully completed systems with the bare minimum 619, which is not terrible for 5 systems, but you definitely can get it much cheaper if you're to go this way. So the base purchase for a server chassis build is $400 essentially, and that seems expensive when you're just looking at a case for $65, but you're not taking into account that if you don't manage the heat flow, you're going to have to shut these down in the summer, and that's going to cost you money in the long run. So all of these a lot of YouTubers that are showing that they have open air rigs, yes, it's cheaper, but it's not done in a efficient manner where you can guarantee that this aisle is cold, this aisle is hot, and all we have to do is heat the front aisle, cool off the front aisle, and then exhaust the back aisle. So here are some of the fans that I use. These are really good fans. These are the 80 millimeter ones that are just like 1800 RPMs. I don't use any of these fans because I don't need to. I just have a single air conditioning unit, which you can factor into the price as well. But a single unit is more than sufficient to cool off. In one server rack, I could probably have 75 cards to 80 cards in one rack. And if I wanted another rack, I can just add another 80, and it would be the exact same situation. I would just have the 2 racks side by side and still have that one exhaust of the heat going out. If I needed to add more heat exhaust, I would just add another pipe and another inline fan, and there you go. But the cool aisle is still going to be the same. It's still just going to have one air conditioning unit pumping into that small room, cooling that small room, and then the rest is going to be going out the back. So here's one of my builds. So this is 5 3080s. This is my Jester build. 5 3080s, and for some reason some of the thermal pads have to be changed. But these are, I'll show you a picture of it here. They're very compact. They're all in one server case, and the temps are fine. So I know it's a little bit over 100, but if I replace the thermal pads on it, they would be 86 to 76. On these ones, I'd have to replace the thermal pads on those. But so there's no requirement of, pumping more air in or anything like that. Take a look at my 3070 rigs. I mean, you can't see the core temps, you can't see the memory temps, but I mean, these are all under 60 for the CPU temps. Here's another 3080 rig, but there's only 3 cards in there. So 90 degrees is the hottest, and 86, 84 for the other 2 cards that are in a server case. So again, I guess the point is, if you have a huge server farm and you're trying to manage heat and it's in a huge warehouse, you got to compact it, get everything into one small area, vertical if you can, and then shut everything off on the sides and make sure that that exhaust is going outside of the room, not into the room obviously, and that you just have one cooling unit in front of all of your GPUs. And like I said, it's 30 degrees outside, and all of my cards are completely cool because that room is not going to change. It doesn't matter how hot it gets outside. In the room, it's a stagnant heat. So it's not getting heated up by outside factors. It's completely shut off from the world, and it's its own sustaining room. So anyways, I hope this helped you guys a little bit. It was a different type of video for me. I just I planned things out in a certain way that I never had to worry about thermals, and I eventually learned how to not have to worry about electricity, and I don't have to worry about sound because I just built a small room, easy to manage the heat, hot and cold aisles, and server cases from the get-go. I've been doing this for 2 years now, so right away I've only worked with server cases because I know that the thermals are good. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoy this. If you want or have any questions, send me some questions, add some comments, and I hope this helps you plan out maybe the summer portion of your mining, and then even after ETH 2.0 hits, let's go ahead and get it all ready so that when the next bull market hits, you don't have to worry about thermals, sound, or power. You're all set. So anyways, I hope this worked for you guys. Let me know what you think. Please leave comments and smash that subscribe, as well as you can take a look at some of my other videos here and here. Thanks, guys.